Hi there, my name is Freddie and this is the Lens Workshop. Coming up in this video, beginner color grading. We've got a brief overview of color grading, why it's important, an explanation of some key terms such as exposure, white balance and contrast, and then finally putting all this into practice, so stay tuned for that. Color grading is a highly important part of film, video and photo. In larger budget productions, a specific professional color grading expert is employed to get the most out of their video. Color grading is also used in photography, but today's video will focus mainly on the video side of things, and it is worth mentioning that these themes generally transfer across into photography as well. Here are two different shots of different subjects. Can you tell which one is and which one isn't color graded? In that case, the color graded shot was actually the first one. This is what it looked like before, and this is after the color grading has been applied. So I've explained why color grading is important, but what do some key terms such as contrast, exposure, color temperature and highlights actually mean? In the Premiere Pro's Basic Correction tab, there's a list of all the basic elements of color grading you will need to know. So I'm just going to read through that list and give a brief explanation and in some cases an example. First of all, white balance. White balance is where you can change the amount of color casting on an image so that, like the previous example, something you know is supposed to be orange has a blue cast to it. You can change the white balance to correct it. Linking on to white balance is tint. Tint is the green or pink cast and can also be used to remove false effects. Now going on to the tone section, exposure is fairly basic. It's like the amount of light in an image. Changing exposure is much like changing the lightness of the picture. Next on the list is contrast. In my opinion, this is what can give an image the edge. It is the difference between the light and the dark areas in the frame. Using this example here, we have a grey square and a coloured image behind. One side black, one side white. When I put this grey square in between the black and the white parts, we can see that obviously the square is more visible on the white side than the black. Contrast is usually associated with a cinematic image because it can add more detail. We also have highlights and shadows. These are also quite easy to grasp. Highlights are generally known as the brighter parts of the image, whereas the shadows are known as the darker parts. And finally on the list is saturation. Saturation can also be related with vibrancy because both will increase the color intensity. Increasing either element will add more color to the picture. So as I've explained why it's important and defined the main terms, now it's time to find out how to actually apply color grading effects to the video. I've pre-recorded 3 clips here, one of them a static B-roll shot, one of them a shot we saw previously but this time with color grading, and then finally a shot known as a worm's point of view. Okay, so this first shot here, you can see that I've slightly adjusted the white balance, kept the exposure the same, adjusted the contrast higher, bumped up the highlights as well as the shadows and the whites, and I've left the blacks and the saturation. The saturation I bumped up a tiny bit just to get those purple parts in the middle to really add some more colour. So as you can see in these 2 clips, I just adjusted the white balance slightly, as well as the exposure, the shadows, the whites. I was going to adjust the whites, but then it didn't really help. So the exposure, the contrast, the highlights, and the shadows, and that is how you get a really nice cinematic image. Thank you ever so much for watching, guys. My name is Freddie, and this has been the Lens Workshop.